So a hurricane's about to make landfall in Florida, and as someone who's been through several hurricanes in his life, well, I figured I'd show you a couple tips and tricks for hurricane preparedness, or however it's actually pronounced, because I can't pronounce anything. Alright, so before you can confirm there's mandatory evacuations, first thing you need to confirm is where the center of the storm is likely to impact and the actual forecast. Because the cone of the storm just basically shows you where the center is going to impact. It's not going to show you this is the zone where all the impacts are going to be. This might be where the worst of the impacts might be, but not where the general zone of the impacts will be. The general zone of the impacts could be much wider than just a typical cone of a storm. So you need to check the forecast regularly. So if they're showing tons of promising signs for an extremely powerful storm, tons of wind and rain, well, you need to get out, or at least find an emergency preparedness plan. So firstly, we need to talk about pets. Now pets, they are a pretty big part of our life because we love them. And well, you know, in my case here we have my chickens. What I like to do, if I was ever told I need to evacuate, but since I'm up here in New England and like 99% of storms before they hit us just like fall apart, well, I don't think I really have to worry about a mandatory evacuation, but y'all down in the south do. So when there is an evacuation in place, let's just take my chickens for example. I basically package them up and I would send them to like someone that's not going to be in the general impact zone here, and I'm gonna send them to there, and the chickens are going to be chilling there for at least a couple of weeks. And I'd recommend doing that. Send your pets to like a friend or family member's house, as long as they're allowed to have that specific pet there. Alright, so if there are ever evacuations ordered, you need to heed them, obviously, since mandatory means it is required. And well, when this all starts to happen, well, you need to get all the stuff you need and leave. But if mandatory evacuations are only requested, then here's what to do if you decide you want to stay back. So firstly, you need to prepare your house. And by preparing the house, what I'm talking about is making sure it's all sturdy. You need to do a thorough check of your house. So if you notice the house is not sturdy, then you might want to leave. But like, if it is fairly sturdy and should be able to hold up to winds of greater than 110 miles per hour, then stay. But chances are, if you have a 130 mile per hour storm come in, yeah, you're gonna have to say goodbye to your roof because, well, you should kiss your roof goodbye because you're not gonna see it after that. So you need to be clearly sure of the potential damage of that. So if I were to take my house into accounting, yeah, I don't think that would even survive 100 mile per hour winds. So you need to be preparing yourself for these potential impacts of the storm, since they are wide, and you need to make sure the house is prepared. Now let's just say again, you're still staying at your house. So so you need to prepare your hurricane kit, so that way you can have all the stuff you need. Now this hurricane kit is going to include non-perishable foods. Now, if you're someone that doesn't know what the word non-perishable means, that basically means stuff like crackers or something that like you put in like your pantry. So you know what, like stuff that doesn't require to be cooked or refrigerated or frozen. So yeah, if you want to cook a steak in the middle of a hurricane, well, be my guest, but that's probably not going to work. So you need a whole package of those. So you need to make up your meal mostly of non-perishable foods, but most of them will go stale, so be sure to keep stock up. You should also include like a first aid kit because if you're taking a big risk staying back at home when there's actually going to be a big hurricane coming through, you need to be making sure you're knowing the risks of that. So first aid kit, that's a big must, because if you don't have a first aid kit, there's a really decent chance that if someone gets hurt, you're not going to have anything to do, because if 150 mile per hour winds come through, rip a wall off your house, I'm pretty sure it's going to take everything in that room with it. So it could be the room where you have all your bandages, and well, you should say goodbye to them. So that's what you need when you have a big storm like that. You need to get all that prepared. Now, if what you're dealing with is a really low-end storm, so something like a Category 1, 74 to 95 miles per hour, or tropical storm, 39 to 73 miles per hour, then this is where you don't need to prepare as much. But here are some precautions that you could take during weaker systems. So firstly, make sure you have all the trees pruned that could possibly spill branches onto your roof. At the very least, you should keep all your trees pruned so stuff won't fall on the power lines and stuff won't fall on your house. Another thing you should prepare is a power outage preparedness kit. So that's why I said non-perishable foods, because, well, if you want to cook a steak in your oven or on a griddle or something like that, well, I'm sorry, but you can't do that, because those require to be plugged into a wall. And, well, this is not required, but if you have a generator, turn it on. Our generator, you have to go out and turn it on. But the generator that you use, it could automatically flick on. But here's 2 things you need to know about generators. Firstly, you can't run an oven, and you can't run a dryer. Pretty sure I'm being pretty obvious when I say that, but some people don't know, so I must repeat my information here. So make sure you have your generator all put up for that stuff, because during a power outage, it is getting really boring. But if you have a generator, well, be my guest. But there is a really decent chance when you get storms really strong like that, well, I'm sorry, but you probably don't have internet, so it's just going to make life even worse. But fortunately for you, I have 3 tips on how to make power outages a lot more fun, with a full video on the way, hopefully by Wednesday. Now, believe it or not, most people think of hurricanes, when most people actually think of hurricanes, they think of wind. But what they don't think of is rain, and that's very sad, because rain is a really big threat when it comes to these big storms. So here's what you need to do when it comes to rain. So whenever you notice there's going to be a big amount of rain accumulation in a short amount of time, by that I mean usually about an inch in around 3 hours. That is a big amount for just 3 hours. You should expect to spend about maybe 7 to 9 hours on an inch of rain. But in like 3 hours or less, yeah, that's big. So you should expect flooding on that. So whenever you're about to see flooding, well, you need to prepare. So firstly, if you have a basement that's clearly open like that one, well, you need to make sure it's all closed off, and well, make sure that, well, if it's lower in the ground, make sure the area's not prone to flooding. If it is, well, you know what to do. You just need to seal that all up, make sure it's all ready for the storm. Now inside the house, if you actually get if you live in a really flat area and the storm gets really serious with rain, like a certain hurricane that happened up here, I can't remember the name, back in the 80s, tons and tons of flooding up here in New England, and that storm caused a lot of flooding, and I bet it would roll right into people's homes. So sandbags. And well, if you want to protect something on your property, not farm, because well, I usually make content about farms, sandbags. I can't stress enough, you need sandbags.